As My Heart Gives Out by Kier As My Heart Gives Out by Kier 18 on AO3. Chapter 7. Hiro-san. Midoriya-kun, I'm glad to see you're awake and responsive. When Izuku tries to straighten his back once again, he is immediately halted by a gesture from the doctor. Don't strain yourself, my boy. Your body isn't ready for anything other than rest at the moment. When Izuku relaxes back into the mattress, he continues. You gave us quite the scare. How are you feeling? The teen's voice catches in his throat as he wills the syllables to escape his dry throat. I'm alive, he settles on saying, despite the obvious aspect of the statement. Yes, Hiro has a soft, knowing smile as he says so. Indeed you are. It is said with so much understanding, it almost makes his eyes water, throat bobbing as he swallows back a sob. Do you remember what happened? At Izuku's involuntary flinch, he hurries to explain. I know it's hard, but I'm afraid I'm required to ask questions about both your mental and physical health. And so, Izuku does. He recounts the last events he remembers, in halting, stuttering sentences, stopping to drink some water multiple times through the process. None of the occupants of the room remark on the evident lack of detail in his story. He wasn't ready to dive into them just yet. He feels as though he would inevitably get lost in his own mind if he tried. Midoriya, the doctor says, when it seems he's done talking. I don't know if you've already been informed of this, but you should know that your condition was very touch and go for a while. He starts slowly. You've been in a coma for approximately 3 weeks. Your body and mind couldn't handle the strain of your injuries, so you, to put it in simpler terms, essentially shut down. Izuku tries to max his internal panic then. Instead, he elects to just nodding his head sluggishly. He could feel Aizawa shifting to sit closer to him as the man begins recounting his injuries and treatment procedures in detail. His mind seems to muddle and slow down, as if his thoughts were caught in a cloud, drifting aimlessly and unhurriedly. Words like, unfortunately, damage, and infection stood out to him occasionally. His mind stuttered at one particular word more than the rest. The empty space near his shoulder ached with the phantom pain. Yet, he could still kept his gaze ahead and his focus far, far away. About that, Aizawa interrupted when Hiro paused his tirade long enough. I've contacted Recovery Girl, and she says the hospital has made no move to get in touch with her. Izuku has been recovering for weeks. Couldn't her quirk have helped speed up his treatment? Maybe he could have woken up much earlier. The hero hasn't been in the clearest mindset the last couple weeks. However, now with Izuku awake and finally showing signs of improvement, well, it suddenly brought up many worries he had overlooked. Dr. Hero, however, didn't react how he expected him to. Instead of sheepishly realizing, or even pridefully indignifying on his behalf on his workplace, the man seemed to admit uncertain hesitation. His gaze, fitted to Izuku's heavy, the silence meaningful, as if he expected the boy to intervene or interact in any way. His heart dropped like lead in his chest. Dread pulling in his stomach, his dark eyes switched to his ward, noticing only now that the younger boy was trembling slightly. If he hadn't been looking so intently, he would have missed the small, almost imperceptible shake of the kid's head, as if the vigilante was trying to convey a secret message, pleading with the doctor to not divulge whatever secret was being held hostage between them. What? He spoke softly, almost as if he hadn't meant to voice the words out loud. What am I missing here? Despite how low his voice, he knew the kid well enough by now to know that he would have heard it from miles away. His silence spoke volumes nonetheless. Izuku. The teen seemed to deflate at the usher of his given name, burrowing in on himself as if to hide away underneath his skin. He couldn't. His voice was so soft, he might have missed it if he hadn't been searching for it. He couldn't. He coaxed gently. You're saying he couldn't contact Recovery Girl? His answer is given, and the boy looks away. We couldn't use any sort of healing quirk on Midoriya. Why? Izuku flinches as his voice rises, tentatively. The guilt washes over him a moment later, and he finds himself taking a few moments to breathe and calm down. He couldn't help the rightful fury that swelled within him. However, because why wouldn't they want to heal his kid when they had ample opportunity and resources to do so? Midoriya hasn't told you then. I apologize. I'd assumed you knew. Told me what? Do you... Izuku speaks up then. Do you remember a while back when I encountered Stain? Stain. Wait. That was when you... His eyes widen in realization. Izuku. He sounded strangely coaxed. What did her quirk do to you? And of course, he would immediately put two and two together. When Izuku tries to speak, the words get lodged in his throat. His mouth opens, helplessly, as he tries to find a way to tell his guardian the truth. Dr. Hero seems to notice his struggle, and thankfully, chooses to take over the explanation. As you already know, the day of the crash, all those years ago, changed Midoriya, in more ways than one. He begins, cautiously. The chemicals that leaked from the truck that night altered his system to a point of no return, along with his heightened senses and increased ability. However, came at a price. When the teacher made no move to interrupt, he continues. The same chemicals that blinded him were slowly beginning to fragment and deteriorate the very essence of his cells. Having lodged itself into his heart, there was no possibility of safe extraction. Whatever procedure we had available at the time would have undoubtedly killed him. He takes in a deep breath, as if to brace himself for what was to come. That day, it was unfortunately declared that he would have an estimated time of 8 years to live. 8 years. Aizawa whispered, eyes going even wider. That means... Yes, if everything had gone as expected, he was supposed to have 4 years left. We had an extremely rare moment of luck, attending the use of a quirk that could slow down the process enough to buy him time. Supposed. His voice sounded strangled, as if he was afraid of the answer he would get. I am unaware of all that occurred that day. Most of my knowledge is either conjury or things I've gathered from Midoriya's spare amount of the events. The boy in question seemed to shrink into his spine even further. However, I believe that something undoubtedly led to him being severely injured at the time, and hence in need of healing. He was attacked, and he was dying, so I called Recovery Girl and asked her to heal him. Of course, anyone in your place would have done so, especially in the relative atypical circumstances you were submitted to. Cut to the chase, Doctor. You're implying that I shouldn't have contacted Recovery Girl, knowing that at the time, my only alternative was to let the kid die? The tentative control he had on his temper wavered as he spoke. Distraught emotions clouded his judgment. Aizawa. A small, fragile hand gripped his sleeve loosely, making him pause, only now noticing that he was standing up. Recovery Girl's quirk heals its subject by replenishing and accelerating the refractment rate of their cells. In any other circumstances, it would only mean positive development. However, in Midoriya's case... No. Don't tell me it... No, it didn't. I'm afraid so, Eraserhead. The use of his hero name only added to the weight of the situation, making everything seem the more real and daunting. Her quirk may have healed his injuries, but it also quick-started a process that had been previously progressing in a slow, almost dormant stage. Therefore, nullifying the quirk effect on him. In short, Midoriya's lifespan was shortened, frighteningly so. How much? And weren't those words familiar to Haru, along with the pain he could practically feel emanating from them? He could only look at the man before him with sad eyes. It's okay, Eraser. A fragile smile was stretched across the kid's features, one filled with so much resign and acceptance it made his heart ache. Tearing his eyes away from the display, he asked again, "How long?" Almost desperately. Midoriya has approximately 6 months left. 6. He sat down, collapsing in his seat as his legs suddenly felt too fragile to hold his own weight. Calculated fingers buried themselves in his dark hair, scraping against his scalp painfully, barely noticing when the doctor excused himself, wanting to give them privacy. What did I do? He muttered, darkly, eyes wide as reality crashed down on him. It wasn't your fault. The kid, his kid, comforted, as if Shouta was the one in need of the comfort the most. Damn it, he hissed. How can you? Why would? He fumbled with his words, trying to voice his sheer incredible and confusion, trying to express just how lost he was feeling. I was the one who called her. I was the one who called her. He repeated, as though it would explain everything. He couldn't save him the first time around. He was too slow, and he failed. And now he cost him 4 years of his life. 4 precious years. How can you even look at me? He whispered, brokenly, smiling and joking with me all the time as if I wasn't the one who ruined your life. What are you talking about? That night, I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't save her. I couldn't save you. Not really. Not where it mattered. Shouta, you know what I think about that night. The name was awkward on his lips. But it didn't matter then. Not when the man that has been looking after him and worrying about him all these years was in distress. Not when he was blaming himself for something that wasn't within his control. You were there that night, out on the roof. You know I don't blame you. I never did. Not for a second. You should. His voice trembled with thinly veiled desperation. Well, I don't. You saved me. Without you, I wouldn't have 6 months, let alone 4. His voice broke without his consent. 4 incredible years. And wasn't that true? He wouldn't have had the chance to meet Shinsou, or Ru, or any of the amazing people he had made bonds with. He wouldn't have been able to save any of the people he saved. He simply wouldn't have lived, in every sense of the word. You are the reason I'm here today. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you, Eraser. The man looked speechless then, looking at him with a disarmingly soft look. He huffed, scrubbing at his red eyes, before looking up once again. I'm sorry. He was the adult here. He shouldn't have been breaking down. He was the adult here. He shouldn't have been breaking down. I should be the one doing the comforting right now. He whispered, self-deprecatingly. Aizawa, you may be my guardian now, but you were always my friend first. Even when you didn't even know my name yet. Yeah, I know. They've known each other for years, after all. We got the first cry of the series. Okay, well, it wasn't a cry, but I am getting teary-eyed, so I'm teary-eyed right now. That was so sweet. Okay, okay. 6 months. 6 months. All right. He did lose 1, unfortunately, because of the coma and stuff, but, he found out about everything, and Oh god. Okay, what's the chapter name of the next one? Okay, we have a chapter name. I was like, is it gonna be named Chapter 8? But no, it's called Much Needed Reunion. So I feel like Midoriya is probably gonna see with some of the other Class 1A students, and specifically with Rue. I feel like he's gonna meet back with Rue. Or maybe Mitsuki. Maybe we're gonna see a little Mitsuki in here. Oh, maybe we're gonna need a little Mitsuki. Sorry, I got a little carried away there. A little bit of Mitsuki, but I'm definitely thinking it's Rue. So hopefully we see more of that. I wonder what the kids who used to bully Izuku in the, what's it called? The orphanage think about him now. That's my question. That's my question. Oh my god, hold up. I kind of want to know, but obviously, probably not going to know, but that's fine. This is a very heartwarming chapter, especially with towards the end, where it's like, you may be my guardian now, but you have always been my friend first. And then Aizawa being like, yeah, we've known each other for years. Fucking hell, that, my heart. It's what made me tear up, that last part. The knowing each other for years, that you have always been my friend first. Knowing that they already have such a special connection, and it just, I'm not crying, you're crying. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.